It's the middle of the summer. It's brutally hot. No one wants to go outside for fear of bursting into flames. So you know what that means. Yes, it's NBA draft time. While this time of year doesn't exactly feel like basketball season, this is a big stretch for NBA teams, including the Thunder. We've already seen the Thunder active with last week's trade of Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso. So what are the impacts of that? And what does all of that signal about what Sam Presti and company might do in the draft? Andrew Schlecht from Down to Dunk podcast is here to break it all down, now on the Jenni Carlson Show. But before we get to that, I want to encourage you to subscribe. First to my YouTube channel, at Jenni-Carlson. Just hit that subscribe button. It's easy, it's free, but it really does help me a bunch. Then I hope you'll subscribe to my Substack, Beyond the Box Score. You can subscribe for free, or if you want to support my work with a paid subscription, those start at $8 a month. I hope you consider subscribing no matter what level at jennicarlson.substack.com. Well, Andrew, the first and most important question, how's the sleep these days? Are you getting any?
Yeah, actually, yes. I'm doing okay. Yeah. It's probably more of like summertime with my kids that's affecting my sleep right now.
Okay.
More than anything. So
I see you doing like 2-hour podcasts on the draft, and I think, oh my gosh, when's he finding time to just like take a breath?
Yeah, my days are packed, like jam packed. But this is the best time of the year. I love it. Like I love every part of it. It's like not even that tiring to me. It'll catch up to me at some point later this week, but right now I'm loving it.
Well, let's rewind to last week for a sec, because the Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso trade sort of, I think a lot of people expected that Giddey might be on the move, but Caruso, I'm not sure people expected quite the return for a 1-to-1 trade. But two-part question on this for you. First, let's talk what this might look like on the court. What's your best sense of Alex Caruso being injected into this offense's defense? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, he's somebody that I think fits really well with what OKC wants to do. I mean, he defensively, first off, is just like another Lu Dort, Cason Wallace kind of guy who can come in. He can defend guys that are bigger than him. I think some of the concern about Caruso, if there is any, is just about his size. But he is a really good defender of wings and guards. And so I think like he comes in, slots in very well. He's made the all defensive team twice. And so I think that is very simple. And then offensively, I think he works really well with OKC too, because he's low usage. He's efficient. He finishes well from three. He's a career 38% from three, shot over 40% last season with Chicago on the highest volume of his career. So he fits really well. And then he's a good passer as well. So he's a guy that can kind of move throughout the offense, can find the open man. He can play a little bit of point guard. He's really more of like an off-ball shooting guard, wing kind of player. But I think that he fits really well with what they want to do. And it's just a guy that you can trust in your rotation. As we know, we watched this Thunder team in the playoffs, and there were points in that series against Dallas where it was just like, okay, who can they trust? They obviously couldn't trust Josh in that particular series. And so it came down to Shea, Jalen Williams, Dort, Chet, and then who? Cason Wallace is still only 20 years old. Isaiah Joe, they put him in the starting lineup, just didn't have a great series against Dallas. Aaron Wiggins is kind of a lower usage guy. The other Jalen Williams didn't have a great series. And so it just came down to like, we don't really have anybody else to go to. And I think putting him into this lineup, I mean, he's, right now, I don't think the Thunder are done making moves, but looking at where they're at today, he's probably their fourth or fifth best player on the team. And so to put him onto this team makes a ton of sense. And to get him straight up for Josh Giddey, I think it's good for both teams, but I think it's easier to see the path of it really helping the Thunder next season.
So second part of the question about that trade, what does it signal in your mind for this week's draft? What is, if anything, how do you think this might impact, just where the Thunder is, what they're thinking, and who they might pick on Wednesday night?
Yeah, I wonder if it does affect it, because I think in the draft you always just have to try to find guys that that are that are going to be good, or at least you have a pretty good idea that they're going to make it in the NBA. Saying that I don't think they're done yet, I don't think that they're necessarily just saying like, okay, now that we have Caruso, we 100% don't need a guard.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think that they could trade one of the guards that's currently on the team and still have room for somebody in this current draft that can come in. There's also a chance that the guy that comes in doesn't really play a whole lot next year. Like this is a team that's going to be competing for playoff spots. This is a team that's doesn't really have the time to develop somebody. And so this could be a guy that plays in the G League a lot. This could be a guy that kind of is at the end of the bench. So I don't think it necessarily affects it all that much. I think that they'll just take who they think is the best player and they'll move forward. Now, there's certainly a lane at the backup center position. We're talking about pick 12 where they could play minutes on this team next year. There's a lane for a forward for sure to come in and play at least, some minutes off the bench and probably play in the G as well. So I can see why people would say like, oh, they have to draft a forward or a big. I get that. But also, if the Thunder don't have high grades on anybody but guards at that spot, they're just going to take a guard.
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes we overcomplicate it a little bit. And there's a pretty good chance that whoever they pick at 12 is not going to impact next season a whole lot.
Yeah.
And so I think still going for some upside where this guy could have a cheap contract, for the next 4 years and could help you. Maybe they do help you next year, but there's a chance they could help you the year after. You just want to get the highest upside guy at this point. You don't necessarily want to draft for fit. I think you get in trouble when you start to draft for fit, especially in the lottery. Like, don't do that. Like, just take the best guy you can.
So if they get another guard, don't freak out. People shouldn't freak out if they get another guard.
No, there's some really good guards too in this range. I think Jared McCain's a guy that I know the Thunder have had in to work out, and personality-wise fits the Thunder really well, and the dude can just really shoot the ball. And so to bring in I don't think you can have enough guys that can just really shoot the rock. And so I think that he's somebody that if they took him, I would be really excited as somebody that's like observing the Thunder, and I think fans should be excited about him too. I get that there are other players like Tristan da Silva out of Colorado who's like kind of fits more what you think the Thunder would want. Cody Williams as well, brother of J-Dub. I think that there's a lot to like in a lot of these players, but if they take another guard, I just wouldn't be surprised. And I also think they could use a little bit more ball handling too, especially you lose Josh Giddey. I think having some more creation on ball wouldn't be the worst thing to have, especially off the bench. I think that's something that they were lacking in the playoffs too, was somebody that could come in off the bench and really score. And so I think having somebody that could potentially be that, not necessarily next season, but that could eventually help you down the line, I think that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Okay, here's the curveball. Will the Thunder actually pick at 12? I mean, you're talking about potential moves and deals. Is there a chance they move up, they move down? Is that more likely than the Thunder actually picking at number 12?
It's definitely on the table. You hear rumblings about the Thunder not picking for themselves at 12. You hear people talking about how if the Thunder were to deal this pick, it would signal that they're trying to clear more space for something a little bit bigger. If they do move pick 12 and they don't come away from this draft with anybody, that to me signals that there's something bigger in the works for the Thunder. And so that's what I would assume if they do move this pick. I also know that they like this draft quite a bit, and that there's a lot of guys in this draft that they think can help them. And so they look at everything. They're always considering everything, but they're in a different phase now of this team. They're competitive now. And so I think that you have to really put everything out on the table. Where in the past it was like, yeah, they're going to take they're going to take somebody at this spot, or they're going to try to trade up and try to get somebody with a little bit higher upside. But now I think they have the core of their team, and they have to consider everything when it comes to complementing those guys.
It sounds like in your mind, it's low likelihood that the Thunder moves up in this draft. But if they do, is there a guy that you think they'd be targeting? Like they got to get this particular guy and they're going to make a deal to move up to get him?
Yeah, I think that one, I don't know that the value is there to move up in this draft, just because I think that this draft is pretty flat. I think the guys at 12 can be just as good as the guys at like 5 or 6 in this one. So, but the guys that I like for them to move up, I mean, Tijan Saloon is a guy that a lot of people link to the Thunder. A lot of it is just because he's 6'10", has a crazy high motor. He's 18 years old.
Yeah, sounds like a Thunder guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good things about him. He's a ways away though. I mean, it's going to take some time for him to develop. So he's one. Stephon Castle out of UConn. I think he's 6'7". He's a 6'7" wing that has point guard skills. He played point guard in high school. He is a questionable shooter, but really kind of does everything else. Really solid defender, really good passer, good rebounder for his size. There's a lot to like about him. I think if he shoots it, I think he could be the best player in the draft. And then a guy like Modest Buzelis out of the G League Ignite is a guy that can do a little bit of everything. I don't know that he's great at any one thing, but he's a really good athlete, and you can see him kind of filling that like 4 spot for the Thunder, maybe not next year, but down the line, and can kind of work his way into that role. He's kind of the do-it-all forward, kind of like the Aaron Gordon type of guy that people think that the Thunder need to look for, and so he's one that'll go in the top 10. And if the Thunder wanted to get their hands on him, they'd have to make a deal. He played for the G League Ignite, which I think is pretty interesting. The Thunder have never drafted anybody that played for the G League Ignite, and so I think I'd be very intrigued to see if they would go after somebody like that. But I don't know if it's worth it to trade draft capital to move up in this draft, though. They may see it differently, but the way I see it, like there's going to be really good guys available at 12, and you don't have to give up anything to get that pick. So
they stay at 12. Who, in your estimation, is the best pick for the Thunder that you think will be available in that range?
I really like Jared McCain. Like I just can't stay away from that guy. His personality is amazing. If you have TikTok and watch him on TikTok, he's just ridiculously hilarious. So he's funny. He can pass. He can shoot off of movement. A lot of people think that Reed Shepherd is the best shooter in this draft. I've talked to some people that think that McCain's better as just like a pure shooter. I just think that guards that can really shoot it, and he's got some size. He's 6'3", but he's really strong. And I just think that guys like that just make it in the NBA. And so if I'm the Thunder, I'm just looking for somebody that I know is going to make it. He's not a real high upside swing, but he's a guy that checks all the character boxes. He's a really good shooter. I think he's going to defend pretty well at the NBA level. So, I mean, to me, I really like McCain. And then Kyle Filipowski is another guy that I've really liked throughout the entire draft process. He'd be a backup big for the Thunder. He's 7 feet. He can shoot, pass, dribble from the big position. I think that he fits the way the Thunder want to play. And I think he can come in and at his size have more of an impact than a guy like Jay Will did for the Thunder. And so he's another one that I would certainly consider at 12. If you're looking for help now, those are 2 names that I really like.
I know because he's, like you say, a kind of flat draft, so this may be a tough question, but Sam Presti, I mean, this is speaking of a fun time of year, for Sam Presti, this has got to feel like Christmas. This guy has to love this time of year. But we're going to know he's been abducted by aliens if the Thunder does what in this draft?
I think if they drafted Ron Holland, I would be so surprised. He's somebody that's falling on draft boards. He's this 6'7", forward. There's a lot of like reasons to like Ron. He's got a really high motor and rebounds well. I think he's going to be a really good defender at the NBA level, but he just doesn't quite play the way the Thunder like to play. And it's a guy that the Thunder haven't really taken. He's not like too dissimilar from like a Jonathan Kuminga kind of guy, which a lot of people wanted the Thunder to take a few years ago. And I would just be really surprised if that's the direction that they went. Like that would just really shock me if they took Ron Holland. I know they had him in to work out. It was reported that he was here working out in a team of guys. It wasn't like a one-on-one or just like one workout for him. It was like a group of guys, but he was in with a group of guys yesterday in Oklahoma City. And so like there's at least a level of interest that exists there for Ron Holland, but I would be pretty surprised if that's the direction they went.
Hey, lastly, you talk about not expecting Sam Presti to be done with moves. What is there a crystal ball sort of top line guess you can make on what might be next for the Thunder?
I mean, you look at the guys that are on the roster currently, like they just don't, outside of Ousmane Dieng and Jay Will, like they don't have anybody in that 6'7" to 7 feet range at all.
Yeah.
And Jay Will had a nice year, but he's somebody that I think that the Thunder probably look at and think we could probably do a little bit better at the backup center position. And then Ousmane Dieng is still like a huge question mark as to what he's going to be as a pro. I don't think you can go into next season without anybody in that size range to help you contribute. Now they lost Josh Giddey, who got a lot of rebounds for them and kind of occupied that spot.
Yeah.
They tried to fill that spot with Gordon Hayward. They need somebody at that forward position to come in and start for them. And so a starting level forward, I think, is something that they need and something that they'll be looking for. Most likely in the trade market. It's unlikely that they would try to fill that via free agency, mostly just because it's Oklahoma City and it's really tough to get free agents. But I think that they have the assets, they have cap space, they have all the flexibility, they have young players. I think now that you have Alex Caruso, it gives you some flexibility to trade somebody like Lu Dort or Cason Wallace. If you wanted to make a deal, you could make one of those deals and use one of those guys as an incentive for the other team, as well as draft picks. There's all the flexibility that you could want to improve this roster. It's there. And I think there will be guys that are available for them. I think Patrick Williams will be available out of Chicago. I think, this is like something that we've been talking about on Down to Dunk a lot, but like don't discount the availability of Kevin Durant and that potentially being something that is looked at. Now, there are a lot of moving pieces and there's a lot to be settled when it comes to a guy like that. But don't be surprised if that name starts popping up here and there for OKC.
Okay, bringing back Durant, you got me interested. Losing Lu Dort, I'm not quite as excited, Drew, but I get where you're coming from. Hey, you mentioned Down to Dunk. Tell people where they can find you, what you guys have planned around the draft this year.
Yeah, so go listen to Down to Dunk. You can come join us on Wednesday night at the Jones Assembly. We're having a big draft party. It's going to be really fun. We've done a draft party since 2017, and so it's just been something that's been really fun for us. It's free. Just come out, watch the draft with a bunch of other draft freaks that are very excited about it. Don't stay home. Just don't stay home. No one's going to be excited around you. Like, I know if I stayed home, like my wife wouldn't care if I told her who they took. I'd sit there and explain it to her. I'd feel really lame. So just come down to the Jones Assembly because everybody's going to understand exactly what you're talking about. So come hang with us at the Jones Assembly. Go listen to the Athletic NBA show as well. We'll have a ton of national coverage there. So appreciate if you guys would do that.
And Froze's at Jones Assembly. Who can beat that? That's a good draft night right there. That's awesome. All right, Andrew, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you a lot.
Thanks, Jenny.
That's all the time we have for now, but please subscribe to my YouTube channel and my Substack, Beyond the Box Score. It's easy and it's free, but if you want to support my work financially, I would appreciate that too. You can do that via my Substack, jennicarlson.substack.com. A quick word of thanks to my video dream team, Jacqueline Musgrove and Michael Lane. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time.